Guys, we're to the college football playoff rankings. So I've got my rankings here and the college football playoffs, 12 teams. Now, my rankings are going by the rules that are for this year, how I would have done it. But hopefully, these rules will go away after this season. The rules of the four highest ranked conference champions having to get a bye, and conference champions having to get a playoff spot, and the highest ranked group of five team having to get a playoff spot. Those rules are ridiculous because a group of five team never has a real chance of being able to win the national championship. And when you have to have the uh, conference champions all in the college football playoff, you can get a situation where a three-loss team gets in, like what happened this year with Clemson. Clemson, I do not think deserves to be in the college football playoff because they got blown out by Georgia when they played, and they lost to South Carolina, who got blown out by Ole Miss, and lost to Alabama, who were both three-loss teams also, and so is South Carolina, and all of them are getting left out of the college football playoff. And I think Clemson's playoff game on the road at Texas is going to show why that rule needs to go, because I think Texas is going to blow them out, similar to the way Georgia did. Clemson is just not an elite football team this year. They're just a good team. So of course I agree that Oregon should get the number one spot because they're the only undefeated team, and they've been the most dominant and consistent team this season and have two good wins. And right now Oregon would probably be my pick to win it all. They look like the best team in the country. And I agree with Georgia getting the second spot because they're the SEC champions, and they've got two really good wins over Texas, and then they've got a good win over Tennessee, and then Arizona State. I would give the third spot because they have a better record than Clemson does, and they're in a much better conference than Boise State is, and I think the Big 12 is still a little bit better of a conference than the ACC is. And Clemson, I would give a bye because they are a Power Four team. And Texas, I agree, should be number five because their only two losses came to the SEC champion, and the last one was an overtime loss, one that could have easily gone either way. And then I would give Ohio State the sixth spot and not Penn State. I'd put Penn State at seven because Ohio State beat Penn State, and Penn State, though I would have higher than Notre Dame and Indiana because Penn State was competitive in their two losses to really good teams, Ohio State and Oregon, and Indiana. They didn't play Oregon, and they got blown out when they played Ohio State. And then Notre Dame is similar to Indiana because they're both 11-1, and neither team has a great win. But Notre Dame hasn't even played against a great team so far. And I would put Tennessee at 10. Their best win was against Alabama, but they do have a loss to Arkansas that looks bad, and their loss to Georgia wasn't close. And I would have put at 11 either Ole Miss or Alabama instead of SMU because Ole Miss and Alabama are in a much better conference than SMU is, and they each have a really good win over at Georgia. And the SMU, even though they do have a better record and they are a good team. They don't have any great wins this season, but I probably would have put Ole Miss in, but either Ole Miss or Alabama would have been acceptable. Ole Miss and Alabama, though, I can see why they both got left out. Uh, and I'm not upset about Ole Miss getting left out, even though I am an Ole Miss fan, because it's really their own fault. Because they should have been able to have won at least one of those three games they lost. They really should have won all three of them, and then they would have been in. And then Alabama, the Tennessee loss was okay. It was to a playoff team and it was a close loss, but the Vanderbilt loss, even though it was close, was a terrible loss. And then the Oklahoma loss, that was terrible too because Oklahoma is a six-win team like Vanderbilt, and it was a blowout loss. So I do understand why Ole Miss and Alabama both got left out. And even though I don't agree with SMU getting in, I'm okay with it because they do have the better record. And their two losses weren't bad losses, they were really close losses. And one came to BYU, who is a 10-win team, and the other one, came to the ACC champion. And Lane Kiffin needs to stop whining about not getting in the college football playoff because I think it's actually really completely his fault why Ole Miss didn't get in. Because remember in the LSU game, they could have kicked a short field goal, but he decided to go for it and they didn't convert, and the game went into overtime and they lost. But if he would have kicked the field goal, they probably would have won the game by three, and then they would have been 10-2 and in the college football playoff. And Boise State, I would have put last because they're a group of five team. And really, this 12-team playoff, I don't really think is going to end up helping because looking at these 12 playoff teams, I still see only four teams that have a real chance to win the national championship, and that's Oregon, Georgia, Texas, and Ohio State. So Arizona State has been a big surprise this season, and they've had a really good season. And congratulations to them for winning their conference, but they're not winning the national championship, and they're also not going anywhere in the college football playoff because after Texas beats Clemson, Arizona State will play Texas, and they will lose that game to Texas, no doubt. And Penn State, I know, has been competitive in their two losses, but they never win any big games. And even though they're a very good team, they're not an elite team. And as soon as Little Win Franklin plays against another elite team, he will lose again, no doubt. So they're not a national title contender. And Notre Dame, I do not think is an actual national title contender. At 11-1, of course, they had to be in the playoffs, even though they played a really weak schedule. But I think if they played in the SEC, they'd probably be 9-3, but you can't know that for sure. So they've got to be in the college football playoff. But Notre Dame in the past, when they played an elite team, has always lost, and no doubt that's what'll happen again. But as soon as it became decided that the playoffs was going to switch to 12 teams, I knew it was going to be unlikely for a three-loss team to get in. It's not a conference champion, no matter which conference you play. Uh, mm, and Indiana, I know has no chance to win the national championship. Now they've had a great season and they've got a great coach, but they do not have the talent on their roster to actually be able to win a national championship. And Tennessee has got a great defense and a great run game, but they don't, I don't think, have a good enough offensive line or a good enough quarterback to win a national championship. Even though I do think they've got good enough wide receivers. And SMU, congratulations for getting in the college football playoff. And I know they've got a very good team, but they have no chance of winning the national championship, and they're likely going to lose their first playoff game against Penn State. And Ohio State, I still do think has a chance to win the national championship, even though they did lose to Michigan again. I'm starting to think at this point that this is just one of those things where Ryan Day just can't beat Michigan, no matter how good they are or how good Michigan is. So Ohio State's offensive line, if you're a fan of them, I would be a little concerned about that. It's been a problem, the last couple of years for them, and it's still not played great at times. But they've got a good enough defense to win the national championship, more than good enough. And they've got the running backs and the wide receivers to have a chance to win a national championship. And their quarterback is good enough to give them a chance to win it all. And they've got coaches that are good enough, in my opinion. And Texas, I still think, has a decent chance to win it all because their second game against Georgia, was so close that I think if they played a third time, Texas might be able to win it. And of course, Georgia, with the talent and depth and coaching they have, has a chance to win it all. And then Oregon, the same thing, the talent, the depth, and the coaching gives them a great chance to win it. And their quarterback being the best of all of these teams, I think gives them even more of a chance to win it all. But Boise State has no real chance to win it all. I know Ashton Jeanty, their running back, may win the Heisman Trophy, but I think as soon as he goes against a really good team, he's going to get shut down and they're going to get blown out. But that will be it with this video. And please subscribe and thanks for watching. And I'll be back soon.